Welcome back, everybody, to the 2-on-1 Fast Break podcast. I'm here joined once again by Dan Erda, our NFL handicapper. Dan, I got to start calling you Mr. 500 because for the fourth consecutive week, you had a 500 week, going 2-2 in week 13. What do you think is the key to your consistently mediocre picks?
I think the key to it is that I actually make these picks simply by throwing darts at a dartboard, so I statistically have a 50-50 chance of hitting every one.
Yeah, but even that's not how statistics work. Just because you have a 50-50 chance doesn't mean you get 50-50 results every time. It's just been pretty remarkable, the stretch of adequate handicapping you've been doing.
The craziness is that I'm always up going into the last game, too, needing the win for 3-1, and it never hits.
Well, when you pick against Peyton Manning in a primetime game, you're asking for trouble, as I alluded to off air with you a few minutes ago, but I know you're a little bitter about that game. So
I was bitter about that game because Kansas City. It was like if Kansas City played 70% of the way they played against New England earlier in the year, they would have been able to take care of business at home. They just didn't show up.
Yeah. So that was. We'll jump right into your Week 13 picks and recap quickly what went on there. So KC +2 was one of your picks that lost last week. So they didn't look as good, nearly as good as they did against New England earlier in the season, and just not even as well as they had played in a few prior weeks.
Yeah, I would love to fade them this week, but they're playing Arizona, and I've been fading Drew Stanton. I don't see myself betting on them either. So, yeah, right now Kansas City is a do not touch team, fade only or no play for me.
Yeah, don't you hate that when there's two teams that you really have a good feel to bet against?
Yes, and they're playing each other.
Then you look what the schedule is, and you see if they're playing each other, and it completely screws up everything for you. But that's probably just selective memory, but it seems to happen a lot. So that was one of your losses last week. One of your wins was a home dog that won for you was Atlanta. You had +3. They beat those Cardinals who you just made mention of, and that final score was 29-18. So, Dan, the Falcons are still in the thick of the NFC South race.
They're still in first place in the NFC South.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable that actually a few NFC South teams won last week, and not against each other. So that was the Falcons' first win of the season outside their division. So that's pretty remarkable. It only takes playing a Cardinals team with their backup quarterback to make it happen. But anything you took away from that game?
Just so you can as bad as the Falcons have been this year, their offense is decent. So if you get them against teams that aren't going to score, and you think that 24 to 27 points are good enough to win the game, they're not unplayable.
No, they certainly have the weapons, and Julio Jones made Patrick Peterson look awful last week. It's not something that happens too often.
Go figure, Julio Jones goes through one of the biggest struggle stretches of his career and breaks out of it when he's against Patrick Peterson.
Yeah, that's not the week you would have pegged for him to break out of his mini slump or whatever he had going on, that's for sure. So that was a win for you. The other game that was a loss for you last week, you had Pittsburgh -4.5, and that didn't hit in a big way as the final score wasn't quite as indicative of how badly the Steelers were defeated. They lost 35-32. 16 of those points were in garbage time.
Antonio Brown fantasy owners love it.
As a multiple league Antonio Brown fantasy owner, I can attest to that.
2 touchdowns in the last 4.5 minutes.
And one of the 2-point conversions.
Oh, man, that's unbelievable.
It was just a smorgasbord of fantasy points in meaningless garbage time, which it's the worst thing in the world when you're going against somebody that starts collecting those garbage time points. But
the Steelers have not hidden the fact that they do care about stats. They threw him a couple of balls earlier in the year when he had that streak going.
Yeah, the 5 for 50 streak that he had, which is it's really ironic because Mike Tomlin is the guy who said stats are for losers.
Yes, exactly.
And then they go out and pretty clearly do things with statistical achievements in mind throughout the season. You're down. What were they down? They were down 19 in a situation they really can't win, and you're playing a hobbled Roethlisberger who hurt his hand earlier in the game. You're playing Le'Veon Bell, who you already released his backup this season, so you're going to be down to a guy in Dre Archer if anything happens to him.
No, you're going to be down to Ray Rice if anything happens to him.
Wouldn't that be something if you signed with the division rival? And
how about Rice and Roethlisberger in the same backfield?
And there's a lot of personal conduct violations.
No women will watch the Steelers ever.
They'll still wave their terrible towels and act oblivious to off the field issues. So that was a loss for you. Your other win in your final full pick for Week 13, you had Jacksonville +3, and that was a winner. As not only did they cover 3, but they actually ended up coming back and winning outright against the Giants.
Never a doubt.
24.
Never a doubt. From the moment the kickoff occurred, there was never a doubt that Jacksonville had the game in control.
I don't know. You seemed pretty doubtful when it was 21-0 in the first quarter there.
I wasn't doubtful at all. I was getting tweets mocking me for calling Jaguars outright win.
Yeah, haters gonna hate. But they came back, and it was that 7th straight loss for New York. They
won 3 games in a row, and that's their only 3 wins of the year.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable the stretch of ineptitude they've been on recently, and just nicely capped off by losing to a Jacksonville team, getting their second win of the season, and blowing a 21-point advantage.
That's a team I called perfectly. I pretty much called the Giants being the 2012 Philadelphia Eagles. They're very similar.
I must have missed when they were called a dream team in the preseason.
That's true. No one ever did that.
I don't think anybody really expected too much from the Giants this season.
Well, long-time coach who has a lot of success, and is probably still with the team just because of that past success. But his message is clearly lost on the team. A bunch of guys who aren't as good as they used to be. Honestly, I would be more inclined to bet on the Giants at this point if they were to give Ryan Nassib a start over Eli Manning.
Yeah, I guess you can't really go away from a guy that is arguably a Hall of Famer.
That's such a ridiculous argument.
Yeah, I know he's
and
not.
Some people are fairly certain he'll get in.
A lot of people are fairly certain he gets in, which, you get 2 rings, that's a pretty short list.
Oh, man.
Which, I agree, I don't think that should be the ultimate litmus test of whether a guy's a Hall of Famer, but, the facts are what they are, and that's probably going to be a pretty key criteria when they start talking about him.
We are going off on a tangent. This is way too much talking about the Giants. They stink.
They do stink, and they're playing another team that stinks this week, the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, man.
Which
is that the worst game of the year? There was a Titans-Redskins game earlier that was terrible.
There's probably been some Jags games that have been really awful.
You know what? At least the Jags have those really exciting wide receivers who are rookies, and I guess, I actually am a Bortles fan. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, especially right now. But I would rather watch the Jaguars play for 24 hours in a row than watch an hour of the Giants.
Man, that's a bold statement. I don't know if anyone could survive 24 hours straight of Jaguars football.
Well, that was the point of my statement. I would be dead.
Yeah. So that was your 2-2 and your 4 full plays of Week 13, and we'll finish up the recap with your second leg of your 3-team teaser that you had was Indianapolis. They were teased down to a pick'em, and they not only won outright for your pick'em, they actually covered the -10 original spread as they won 49-27 against the Redskins. Redskins look better than you might have thought, but still they're nowhere in the caliber of the Colts, and especially with Indy being at home, that was a really lopsided game.
It was, and as good as the Redskins looked, a lot of it was against the prevent defense in the second half.
Right.
Indianapolis just destroyed. Indianapolis kills bad teams.
That's what they do. They're the anti-Pittsburgh.
And absolutely, although Pittsburgh can't seem to win any games right now.
No, well, the
Saints are not a bad team.
We were debating that last week. Are the Saints a bad team? And just because they beat the Steelers, now that doesn't mean they're not a bad team. That would lend evidence to the fact that they are a bad team.
If the Saints lose at home to Carolina this week, they're a bad team.
Exactly. And I realize that they're 10-point favorites this week, but would it absolutely shock you if they lost the Panthers? I don't think it would, because they've had similar spots this season where you thought they were a sure thing at home and they lost.
It would just shock me if the Panthers won a game.
That's true. They do seem done. And I think they should put Cam on the bench for the rest of the season just because he's not healthy right now, and he's your franchise guy. run him into the ground in what are essentially meaningless contests these last 4 weeks. Doesn't make much sense. But so you did win that second leg of your teaser, and you're gonna close that out in week 14 here. So why don't we kick things off with what your week 14 plays are and talk about closing that teaser. And you're going to do that with Denver at home against the Bills. They're a 10-point favorite, so you're going to tease that down to a pick'em, and that'll be your third and final leg of that teaser. Hopefully, close that out with a victory. So it's always kind of obvious when we talk about these 10-point teasers, but why are you going Denver here?
I mean, I actually really like Buffalo as a team this year. I kind of feel bad for them because if only they had a somewhat decent quarterback, they could be in really good shape right now. They do need this game to remain in the playoff hunt, but they're just like Denver's offense at home. Buffalo's just not going to be able to keep up with them. Buffalo might give them a little bit of trouble from the defensive side of the ball. They might get in Peyton Manning's face a little bit, but I just think that this is a safe game to tease down because while Buffalo might cover the spread, I just can't see them being able to keep up offensively with the Broncos.
Yeah, the Bills' defense has been playing really well, and they are equipped. They're the type of the team that is equipped defensively to give the Broncos trouble. Broncos struggle against teams with a good pass rush that can force Peyton to get the ball out even a little quicker than he would want to. I know he gets it out quickly as it is, and they have those stout interior run defenders that can stop C.J. Anderson, who's had 2 straight 150-plus yard performances the last 2 weeks, so they've been running the ball really effectively lately. Denver has, and Buffalo is a team that defends the run well. So defensively, I think they're equipped to handle Denver, not handle them, but do a better job than most would. But yeah, Denver at home, they're still going to put up their share of points, and I just don't think the Buffalo offense hasn't looked great at all in recent weeks. Even the games they've won, they haven't shown me a whole lot.
Exactly. The only games they win are the ones where they can get you into like a 17-14 dogfight kind of game, and Broncos at home aren't going to get into that.
Yeah, so 2-game winning streak for the Bills, but again, that was against the Jets and the Browns, so not real powerhouses. Denver, a whole other class of team, and Denver still fighting for playoff positioning. They want to get a first-round bye, and
right. These games are not meaningless.
New England losing last week that opened the door for the number 1 overall seed in the AFC, which would be huge for them because they don't want to have to potentially go into Foxborough deep in the playoffs. They'd much rather have that be a home contest. So
absolutely,
they need this game. So I agree with you. This is a pretty safe one to close out the teaser at a pick'em. I wouldn't back them -10 just because of the reasons we talked about. I think the Bills have a defense that can help them hang around, but I think a pick'em is a pretty safe bet to close out that teaser. All right, so that's one of your one of your plays for Week 14. You're going to close out that teaser, Denver pick'em. You have 3 full plays for Week 14. The first of which is the Thursday night contest. Love those home dogs. Chicago +3.5 at home against the Cowboys. Dan, why are you riding this home dog?
The reason I like the Bears is because I'm going to describe a team to you, all right? This team I'm thinking of has controversial quarterback. Some people say that he could be a franchise quarterback. Really good stats, numbers on paper. But people who watch him week in and week out with their naked eye see a lot of interceptions, see a lot of choking, a lot of not stepping up to the moment. The team I'm thinking of has a legitimate star running back who can beat you on the ground or catch passes out of the backfield. The team I'm thinking about has 2 very, very solid running backs. One is a young beast entering or in his prime. The other, a guy that isn't putting up as good of numbers as people had hoped, but still a weapon on the field. A reliable tight end who's really good on third downs. And their Achilles heel is a defense that seems very porous. Now, you know what team I'm thinking of?
I read your article on BookieSmash.com this week, which is a good read. Definitely check out Dan's piece there. So I know where you're going with this, and for those at home, I'll spell it out for you. Both these teams, and it's a really interesting point you make when you bring that up.
These teams are so similar. They're similar in so many ways, and really it comes down to the schedules that they've played. Dallas has gotten these wins against these crap teams, and that's how they got off to such a hot start. The Bears, on the other hand, their losses have come against Buffalo, 2 against Green Bay, a really, really bad loss to Carolina.
One of those Green Bay losses was really bad, too. That should count for more than one loss.
A Miami loss, New England, Detroit. But even if it was a bad loss, my point is all these losses are teams right in the playoff race.
Yeah,
they're good teams. Meanwhile, Dallas's wins have come against Tennessee, St. Louis, New Orleans with New Orleans on the road, an overtime home win against Houston, twice against the Giants, and Jacksonville. So
it's a real murderer's row.
Exactly. That's a ridiculously easy schedule. And you see what happens when they play a team with an offense. The whole narrative was that preseason Dallas's defense was supposed to be epically bad, and then it's like, whoa, maybe they're not. Or maybe they just didn't play any offenses who can score points.
Yeah, they're still pretty bad.
They're terrible.
As you mentioned, that was a string of really bad offenses they went against. So,
and you can make an argument that if the Bears and the Cowboys flipped schedules, they'd have reverse records, and the whole narrative of their seasons would be completely different. So having said all that, one of those teams is 3.5-point favorites on the road. Give me the home dog there. It's one of my favorite plays of the year. I'm not making the 2-unit play or anything, but I see these teams as completely even, and the home team is getting 3.5 points.
You sure you don't want to make it a 6-unit play and try to
catch them all?
Try to get back to 500 on the season?
Actually, I think I mentioned that 3-team 10-point teaser was a 6-unit teaser.
Oh yeah, did you?
So when Denver beats Buffalo, I'll be back to even.
Yeah, I didn't bring this up, everybody out there listening, but Dan is 21-27 on the season. So
yes.
the 6-unit play would get.
I gotta make up these 6 units in the last couple of weeks. But.
Yeah. So, but yeah, getting back to the Bears-Cowboys matchup, I definitely agree that these teams are a lot closer than the records would indicate. Cowboys have been pretty bad recently, and some of that has to do with the teams they're playing. And Chicago at home, maybe this is a kind of a last gasp effort for them to kind of save their season before they're officially eliminated. Either way, 3.5 is a lot of points, and I definitely think the Bears' offense will be able to at least put up some points and keep things close against that Dallas defense.
And the first quarter last week, the Bears went up 14-3 in the first quarter. Cutler just moving the ball down the field with Jeffrey, and then it just stopped. And that's the problem with this team. You see them do that, and you look at the weapons, and you say, why can't they do that more often? And just in this situation, at home against Dallas, I think that they're going to be able to extend that and play 2 or 3 good quarters instead of just 1. And, yeah, as 3.5-point underdog, give him to me.
Is there any concern for you about Jeffrey's status? Because I know he's been downgraded to questionable.
If Alshon Jeffrey does not play, I will like this play a whole lot less. Absolutely. Yeah. He was the beast receiver entering his prime I was referring to.
Okay. And Brandon Marshall is the underachieving guy?
I don't even know he's underachieving. I think he's a little hurt right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Alshon Jeffrey's a monster. And as far as right now he's playing, if anything comes out, follow me on Twitter. If I buy off it, I buy off it. I'm not going to buy off it at a worse number though. So
yeah.
But as of right, I'm just going with the assumption that he is playing.
Okay. And I will add that a concern would be that Dallas gets back to really grinding out the game through the running attack, and Chicago, obviously one of the worst run defenses in the entire NFL. So that would be a concern, but it's not like we need Chicago to win. They're getting three plus the hook, so that's a pretty.
And you watched the game on Thursday, right? The Eagles-Dallas game.
I thought I did. It might have been like a fever dream the way they were playing.
Romo is hurt.
Yeah, he didn't look especially spry. So I know that plays into your thinking with this a lot too. The fact that
a guy with a bad back in the freezing cold in Chicago.
Yeah, my back's okay, and I don't like being in the freezing cold here or Chicago. So I'm sure that won't be pleasant. And so that's your first full play for Week 14. Chicago plus 3.5. So you got 2 more on the docket. Another one is a home favorite that you like. You're going with Minnesota -6 at home against the Jets. So Dan, I gotta imagine this is kind of more fading the Jets than it is having confidence in the Vikings. Is that the case?
It's 1,000% the case.
Okay.
I'm just ready. The Jets had their chance to get that one last big win of the season on Monday. Unfortunately, you have to throw the ball sometimes in football. The Jets didn't think they tried to get through the entire game without doing that.
I didn't realize that. I thought you just ran the ball 50 times, and that's how you could win in today's NFL.
I mean, in the 70s and 80s, I think you could do that.
Yeah.
But the Jets are a mess. They're not going to be able to do it. They kind of took Miami by surprise. They had the home field, and they kind of had a kitchen sink game where they were pulling out all kinds of trick plays. I think they ran like 5 or 6 reverses. And that was just their game. Like, we're on TV, the nation's watching us because even though we're a horrible team and this game is boring to watch, everyone loves football. So we're going to give them a show. We're going to go out with, it was kind of Rex Ryan's last hurrah. They couldn't even pull that game off. And now it's pretty much just, it's pretty much written in stone that Ryan's gone and the season's pretty much over for them. And it's one of those games where Minnesota gets a home game. Bridgewater will have an opportunity to give fans some hope for the future. I think they kind of go nuts.
Yeah, the Vikings looked pretty good last week.
They're getting a lot better.
Yeah, they got Kyle Rudolph back finally. He had a touchdown last week. Charles Johnson didn't have a good game last week, but he's a guy that's been coming on lately for them. So giving Bridgewater another option in the passing attack. And as you mentioned, there's just not a lot to like for the Jets' perspective right now. Geno Smith they didn't even trust him to give him a chance to do something last week, and that just showed what little confidence Rex Ryan had in him. It's public knowledge that Ryan didn't want to go back to Geno Smith. He wanted to stick with Mike Vick because he thought Vick gave him the best chance of winning games in the short term. He's trying to coach for his job, but the GM pretty much came down and told him, hey, you need to go back to Geno Smith. So what does he do? He doesn't even give Smith the opportunity to air it out and see what he can do. He makes the most boring vanilla game plan he possibly could. So, the Jets, give it to the guys out there that they looked like they were playing hard on Monday night. They didn't just roll over. At least that's something to be said. But now going on the road, playing in a cold environment there in Minnesota, that I don't think that's a spot for them to really.
They're indoors.
I thought they were playing in. Weren't they building a new stadium?
Oh, you might be right.
They're playing it like the.
I don't care. Neither one of them. That doesn't factor into my playing at all. I don't care.
Yeah, but just in general, aren't they? They're playing at the college stadium while they're.
No, University of Minnesota, right?
While they're building the dome. So I agree. It's a bad spot for the Jets.
Minnesota has to score 24 points. If they do that, this game's a cover.
Okay, you heard it here first. So when Minnesota wins 24-20, this doesn't cover. But no, that's your second full play for Week 14. Minnesota -6, and finally your last play for Week 14. Hopefully one that will help you end your 4 consecutive weeks of 500 picking. You have the Philadelphia Eagles as a pick'em at home against the Seattle Seahawks. Dan, Seahawks have looked pretty good of late. Apparently you're confident enough in the Eagles' recent performance to side with them here.
Yeah, I've kind of been the first couple months of the year, the first couple months of the season. I didn't play Eagles on either side really. I didn't play them to win. I didn't play them to lose because I felt like I was a little bit skewed because of my homerism. But I really just think I know the team now, and I didn't make it a play, but I advised everyone to bet against them in Green Bay. And I bet on them on my own in Dallas. I've been making.
If you broke your personal rule of betting against the Eagles, you would have been over 500 that week.
And if I bet on the Eagles last week, I would have been over 500 last week.
There you go. So now you're finally breaking away from your personal edict.
Well, the Eagles and Seahawks last Thursday were both. I'm going to be eating and drinking all day, so I want to have some gambling action going too. And I happen to go 2-0 on those plays.
That's nothing wrong with that.
But obviously they don't count or anything. But I love the Eagles at home. I think Seattle's going to go back to the mediocre. They're not a mediocre team. They're a very good team. But they haven't even been blowing teams away. And I think the defense on the road is not nearly as good as the defense at home. This is going to come down to if the Eagles can contain Russell Wilson. Because if Russell Wilson runs for 150 yards, it's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah, I will say that the Eagles, when they lose, it's because the opposing quarterback is, the Aaron Rodgers type that
100%
can
agree.
really take advantage of the poor Eagles secondary, which is the most glaring weakness they have. They defended the run pretty well this season.
Absolutely.
So that's the area Seattle has been hurting teams in. Their passing attack has not been good all season. Even worse after they got rid of Harvin. So
it's a West Coast team coming east for a 1:00 game. I just think it lines up.
It's the 4:30, right?
Is that 4? Oh yeah, it's 4:25 actually.
Yeah.
But yes, you are correct.
Still west to east.
West to east, and I just can't. I just think I get this Eagles team now, and I think that this is a game they're going to win. I'm actually a little more worried about the Washington Redskins game than I am about this game. If they're going to lose a game in the rest of the year.
Just because divisional games are always such a close affairs in the NFC East.
Divisional road games against a team that has a quarterback who's actually playing for something. It's bad that I'm scared of Colt McCoy and I wasn't scared of
RG3. You seem more worried about Colt McCoy than you do about Russell Wilson.
Well, in a way, I am, because I think if Russell Wilson doesn't run all over the Eagles, he doesn't have Deshaun Jackson, he doesn't have Pierre Garçon, he doesn't have Jordan Reed, he has Cooper Helfet, and he has Jermaine Kearse and Doug Baldwin. Those aren't the kind of teams that really do a lot of damage against the Eagles.
No, yeah, I definitely expect the Eagles' defense to be able to hold up well against Seattle. Offensively, for Philadelphia,
big question. That's the big question.
Where do you see them having success against Seattle's defense, which has played a lot better lately?
I think it's going to be a lot of running. LaShawn McCoy has gotten a lot better lately. The defense has been good, but it's also been they've looked good against home, and they've looked good against teams that really don't have a great offense. I think they're going to find a way. I really think that they're going to go at Sherman. I don't want to stay away from him. That's been a big talk in the Philadelphia media is, do you stay away from Sherman all game? And really the only team that did that was the Packers, and they're the only team that got blown out by Seattle this year.
Yeah, that was way back in week 1, and it was ridiculous. They just threw Devontae Adams up there, or was it Adams, or was it the other their other
Cobb? Not Cobb.
Completely blanking on Adams is their third or fourth receiver, and the other guy who was the third or fourth.
Oh, Boykin, Jared Boykin.
Yeah, it was Boykin. Yeah, they threw Boykin up there, and just to kind of say, hey, well, you're going to stay on that side of the field, and if you're going to take that side of the field away, all right, you're taking away the guy that's the last option for us in every one of these plays, and then that's how Jordan Nelson ended up having a huge game.
And I just trust I trust Chip Kelly's offensive imagination a lot more than I trust Mike McCarthy's.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think they're going to spread the ball around a lot, too. I don't think it's going to be a Macklin game. I don't think it's going to be a Matthews game. I think it's going to be one of those games where if you look at the box score, you're going to see like a guy with 5 catches, another guy with 4, another guy with... I think it's just going to be a spread around. It's not going to be a really typical blowout game. I just see the Eagles coming away with a win here at home.
Well, from a fan's perspective, I definitely hope that you're right there. So those are your plays for Week 14. Again, you're finishing off your 3-team teaser with Denver at a pick'em down from -10. You like Chicago in the Thursday night game plus 3.5 against Dallas. Minnesota -6 at home against the Jets. And finally, Philadelphia at a pick'em at home against Seattle. So, four plays.
I could go 2-2 again.
The 2-2 possibility.
As long as the Eagles are one of the winners, I'm not going to be depressed.
All right, so that's your plays for Week 14, everybody. Enjoy the NFL action, and hopefully we come back next week and it's a 3-1 or 4-0 week.
Good luck.